part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another Reghi and Roda podcast powered by MGM Northfield Park right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Shout out to our producer, Ty Quartz, to make sure everything sounds good for all of you out there listening in the podcastosphere. And hallelujah, Michael Reghi, it has happened again this season. The Cleveland Browns won another football game. They defeated the Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers in comeback fashion Sunday at First Energy Stadium, where there were tire tracks all over the field from somebody who stole a golf cart and turfed the stadium. The final in overtime, the Browns 23 and the Buccaneers 17. I'll be honest with you, Reg, when they were down 17-10 in the fourth quarter, maybe I was thinking like Tampa Bay was, oh, they're not going to come back and score. Our defense will get it shut down is what Tampa was thinking. And give them credit, Jacoby Brissett in his final start before turning it over to Deshaun Watson. I don't know if it was a Hail Mary pass, but he throws one up there, and the Chief, David Njoku, goes high to snag it with one hand, force overtime, and they win the game. That's a heck of a victory for the Browns.
No, it really is. No question about it. And absolutely needed if, you have any thoughts of football in January here, Kenny. And even more needed because if you go back to Friday, right, for the city of Cleveland and even the state of Ohio sports, this Bucks thing hadn't gone well, right?
No,
in the end, Milwaukee Bucks laid it on the Cavaliers on Friday night. Just a complete disaster for the Ohio State Buckeyes on Saturday afternoon, getting dominated by Michigan again. And so I'm thinking today, now Brady going to come in here and pull one of his, Brady spectaculars out, Kenny, and that would have made the triumvirate of Buck issues for Cleveland sports this weekend. Lo and behold, it didn't happen. And the Browns, listen. Credit to them, resilient, right? Found a way to come back from behind. Got Nick Chubb going in the second half. I believe he ran for $116, and they did just enough to grab that victory. And so to get them back where, people want to start thinking about maybe somehow, some way could it happen to have them playing football in January. So a lot to do yet with them, but and now Deshaun Watson comes back, Ken. So we are all teed up for that, aren't we?
Yeah, no question about it, Reg. And we're going to get to the other Bucks you referenced there, and that's the Ohio State Buckeyes getting their butts whooped as Michigan opened up a can of whoop ass in the second half, 28-3 on them to win for the second straight year. That's coming up here in the next segment. But for this one, Reg, Nick Chubb, how about this? You and I have been begging. We've been begging for Kevin Stefanski to feature Nick Chubb. Give him the damn football. Let him be the focal point of your offense. And lo and behold, Stefanski decided to do that even with them down in the game. How about this? 26 carries today for Nick Chubb. I think he caught one or two balls out of the backfield as well. So let me look it up to be exact on this. Nick Chubb, 26 for 116 and a touchdown. Let's see here. Nick Chubb, one catch for 16 yards. So 27 touches today for Nick. And that's what has to happen, whether it's Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I don't care who is at quarterback. Nick Chubb needs to be the feature guy, and he scores the game winner in OT. And finally, Kevin Stefanski, we can all agree on something that he did something right.
1,000%. You and I have laid that out from the beginning of the year. Hey, listen, I'd let Nick Chubb know, hey, look, man, I'm going to get you the rock 25 times at least. Hell, it might be 30. And because we know you're good with that. We know that's what you want. And we know that you can saddle everybody up and make things happen offensively when things are looking like they may be bleak. And Nick Chubb did exactly that. And Kenny, you got to love the guy. I have so much respect and admiration for him. because that's who he is, and that's what he is. And he wants to embrace being the man on this football team, and he does that. So good. And so Kevin Stefanski, thumbs up to you, man. Thumbs up to you. You made sure your main man was involved, and you made sure that he was the thrust of everything you knew you had to do to win a football game. So for this one day, Kenny, let's hope that maybe they figured out, you know what, we don't have to overthink this, right? Let's not try to be too cool with this. This has got to be the formula for the Browns if they're going to win football games, Ken, every week. You and I know that, and we talk about it every week. We have been going back to the preseason. So let's hope it's a start of something where this is a huge now going into December workload for how many more? What do you got? 6 more regular season games? Yeah, 6.
Yep.
So, maybe Nick Chubb will, like I said, get everybody saddled up, and he'll tell them all, you ride me, and good things will continue to happen for the Browns.
And happy for Jacoby Brissett as well, because this was really the first time, Reg, as the quarterback of the Browns in 11 starts where he led them from behind, and it was his play along with Chubb that tied the game. Yeah, it was a miracle catch by the Chief David Njoku going up like Odell Beckham Jr. in the back of the end zone to haul in that 4th down pass right with 32 seconds left. But still, give Jacoby Brissett credit, because he took them down there. He made a couple of plays, and then in overtime, a defender falls down. He gets the ball out to Cooper, and they get it down and go in and get the victory. And so 4-7 as the starter for the Browns. I think they were hoping, at worst, maybe 5-6, if not 6-5.
Right.
But a few of those games weren't his fault. Some were, because he couldn't lead them from behind. But nice to see him beat his former mentor for a year, right, in New England, Tom Brady, and stick it to hey, anytime Tom Brady loses, in my book, that's a good day, because as a Steelers fan, he owned the Steelers, and I hated him. Plus, he played at Michigan, so I doubly hated him. So anytime he loses, I'm happy. And for Browns fans, they've got to be thrilled to get this win now. Let's see, right, as they move forward, what they can do at 4-7 with Deshaun Watson back at quarterback. And, he just so happens to start his first game in 700 days in the regular season on the road against his former mates, the Texans in Houston. And luckily for the Browns and Watson, that's the perfect game to start. You say, wait a second, what do you mean? What about all the vitriol and all the hate that's going to be out there? It don't matter. Houston sucks, Michael.
They're 1-9-1, aren't they not? 1-9-1?
This is
no
the
excuses.
Game.
I don't want to. Yes.
No.
How I hear anything, you just better go take care of the Houston Texans. Period. They've won 1 football game in 11 tries. Period.
So he gets to come back against that football team, and we'll see how much of an impact he can make in game 1 week, or I should say, what is this, game 12, right? Yeah. Coming up, and then the rest of the season. So it starts with a victory Monday tomorrow, and Deshaun Watson replacing Jacoby Brissett. And also, Reg, I got to give Myles Garrett credit. We've called him out at times too, because
deservedly.
Without question. If you talk defensive player of the year stuff, you better back it up.
Yep.
And he was kind of quiet for most of the game, but then he comes up with 2 big plays late in the game. OT takes Brady down, and who's the rookie cornerback that had a hell of a game today? Emerson, right? That's his.
Yeah, Emerson, the kid from Mississippi State.
Yeah, he went out and had a hell of a game today, checking Mike Evans. Brady and Evans could not connect on that, game-breaking play. So those 2 guys stood out on defense for me. Special team. What do you know? They found a return game. Yeah, I know they missed another field goal with, Cade York shanking a 36 or 39-yarder, whatever it was. But it looked like they had a decent return game today. So Mike Prefer gets a stay of execution. Joe Woods gets a stay of execution. And you move forward here now with a little momentum at 4-7. Ravens lost, Bengals won. So those 2 are tied for first, and you're 3 games out of first in the AFC North. But realistically, you got to go minimum 5-1 in these last 6 to have any chance of making the playoffs. Ideally 6-0 to give yourself a shot.
Yeah, they do for sure. And again, listen, a solid, decent, good job by Jacoby Brissett in taking over the reins in 11 football games. Yeah, 4-7. And as you said, Ken, and we've talked about this too, hey, again, you go out there and, and Brissett did enough good things to be a little bit better, but like we talked about, and it didn't happen today, so they got the win, so that's a good thing. But Brissett had a couple of opportunities in games to win in the fourth quarter, and he wasn't able to do it. And, if you want to say, well, yes, because, he's not an elite quarterback. He's not a starting quarterback. But make no mistake, Kenny, these 11 football games, I bet you if we had Jacoby Brissett right now, I bet you he's damn hopeful these 11 football games get him an opportunity to start somewhere next year. You can count on that. And who knows? You know how it is. A couple of these teams, these owners and general managers get all mad after their team, ends the season way less than what they wanted, and they feel they're not getting strong enough quarterback play. There's a chance Brissett could get an opportunity to be a starter next year. So he's done enough to potentially earn that. We'll see. And yet today was absolutely one. They've got to have everyone, like you just said. But at 4-7, they put themselves in a position that, it makes it mandatory. And they did enough today. And again, giving the football to Nick Chubb and enough strong defensive at the right time when they needed some defensive plays, like you were just mentioning with Emerson. They made plays. I wouldn't say it was a great defensive effort. However, again, you get a win and you got a couple of stops when needed. So they got the job done today. And I don't know what that does for Joe Woods, Kenny, if it gives him another week before he doesn't have to be on the firing line again with Browns fans everywhere. But, they got the job done today. And so onward and upward, and you don't have to quite write the season off just yet.
I'm looking at the stats right now. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 15-yard average on 5 punt returns, Michael.
He solidified that, Ken, like you were just saying. Remember how they had, I don't know, I'm going to say at least 3 different or maybe 4 different guys. So Peoples-Jones, he returned punts at Michigan, and he did. He solidified it because he catches the ball, and then what did he average today? 15 on 5?
Yeah,
that's a hell of a strong job, averaging 15 on punt returns.
Absolutely, and then you got 33.5 on kickoff returns from Jerome Ford. So better in the special teams, even though they shanked, the field goal there by Cade York and Amari Cooper with just a huge drop, and you're thinking, here it goes again. 25-yard line. He drops the ball, and you're thinking, here's another way the Browns lose. But they overcame that today, Michael. And they beat the GOAT, Tom Brady, and the Buccaneers to keep their playoff hopes alive, even though they're very, very, very slim. There is still a heartbeat. So you're saying there's a chance from Dumb and Dumber. Well, run the table, and we'll see if that chance comes to fruition eventually. But it was a much-needed win for the Browns, who had lost, 6 of 7 and 2 in a row since coming off the bye, and the last win was Cincinnati. So now we'll see going into Houston next week, and then I think it's Cincinnati and Baltimore right after that. Yeah. And you'll know right there whether or not they'll be a playoff contender for a wild card or the division spot with those 2 divisional games after they play at Houston next week.
Right, exactly right. You mentioned the very uncharacteristic drop by Amari Cooper, and kudos to Jacoby Brissett, because went right back to him, Ken. Yep. Which is when you got a guy like him, and he's your guy, and again, everybody, like, I know my jaw dropped when he dropped. And I mean, again, that's just a flat out 1,000,000% drop. There wasn't a defender within 5 yards of him. And it's like, that doesn't happen to Amari Cooper. But you go right back to him, and Brissett did, and he made the catch that moved the sticks for a first down. And I like that, Kenny, because to me, that's the way you play football. When one of your guys has a momentary miscue, get them involved right away, real quick, just as fast as you can. So they did that today. But again, like you said, Nick Chubb, listen, when Nick Chubb gets rolling and can run the football like that, the Browns do have a chance to win every Sunday. So let's hope it keeps up, Ken.
All right, so the Brownies improved to 4-7. The Buccaneers fall to 5-6. And next up, as we said, the Houston Texans on the road next Sunday at 1 p.m. Reg, let's get a break in right now. And when we come back, we'll talk about the other big football game over the weekend, and I'm flabbergasted by it. I knew it was going to be a close game, but I didn't think it would be a blowout by either team. And the Wolverines of Michigan came into Columbus and opened up that can for the second straight year and took down the Ohio State Buckeyes in convincing fashion, 45-23. So I want to get your thoughts on that. J.J. McCarthy outplaying C.J. Stroud, and now Michigan in the driver's seat to win the Big Ten championship and advance to the college football playoff. We'll break that game down, take a look at the college football playoff rankings through our eyes, and get into some other college football news coming out of the Big Ten, as well as they have a new head coach in Wisconsin. All that and much more when we return to the R&R podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network, powered by MGM Northfield Park.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of the Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tyvis, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary.
And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
And welcome back to the Reghi and Roda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. And this edition of the R&R podcast, as always, brought to you by MGM Northfield Park. Northfield Park, your home for live and simulcast racing. Catch the excitement of live harness racing every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday evening with a 6 p.m. post time. Wager and win daily on top thoroughbred and harness tracks from around the world, with action starting somewhere around noon. Plus, enter to play that free handicapping contest they have every Sunday, and you have a chance to win some cold hard cash, about $500. Registration begins at 11 a.m. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. And Michael Reghi, Saturday's game, the greatest rivalry in all of college sports, took place in Columbus. The Buckeyes smarting after getting their asses whooped last year in Ann Arbor, 42-27. Talked a good game about how they had scars and the pain from last season, and that they were going to go out and take care of business this year. Well, opening drive looked like the Cleveland Browns went right down the field, scored a touchdown, but then had trouble scoring touchdowns the rest of the way. give credit to Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines defense and their offense as, again, the Buckeyes out-coached, outplayed, out-physicaled, out-everything in a 45-23 win by the Wolverines in Columbus. And, Michael, to me, that was more impressive than last year's win because it happened in Columbus with a first-year quarterback and without Hutchinson, wreaking havoc and Ojabo wreaking havoc defensively. I came away thoroughly impressed with the Michigan Wolverines as they just crushed the Buckeyes.
You hit all the hot spots right there as you got us rolling with this one. And again, Kenny, and of course you expect them to. I mean, Ohio State is one of the very best and top football programs that we have in the country. There's no question about that. They've shown that. They've proven that. But Kenny, I got to tell you, for a team that talked it all year long about how embarrassed they were last year in Ann Arbor. And again, Ken, you got to look at the way this is handled. Michigan is not, Jim Harbaugh is who he is. It's who he is when he coached the San Francisco 49ers, now the Michigan Wolverines. Jim Harbaugh basically says, my offensive line is going to manhandle you. We're going to run the football, and we're going to control the game. That's who Jim Harbaugh is. Now, he's understood that, hey, listen, in this day and age, you got to be able to have a quarterback that can make some things happen with a pass game too. But Jim Harbaugh is never going to back away. That's who he's been his whole career, Kenny, and that's how he likes to win football games. And so, again, on the first half yesterday, Ohio State did a nice job against the Michigan offensive line in the run game. Now, and I knew it was going to be a problem because, again, the difference, I know a lot of Ohio State fans, just because Blake Corum was out, Buckeyes didn't have Jackson Smith and Jigba. But see, here's the difference. Jackson Smith and Jigba hasn't played all year, Kenny. Blake Corum just got hurt in the third quarter last week against Illinois. So that's something that the Wolverines had to, and I don't even think he should have went out there. He carried the ball twice. I don't think he should have played, but that's, wanted to play. That's a story, again, for another time. But so the thing to me, though, is that how Ohio State basically let the same game style and flow happen again, this time at home. In your own place. And that's why it looks worse. I mean, Kenny, I made sure I looked at it twice because I did. Michigan ran for 214 yards in the second half. The second half, 214. After Ohio State did a damn good job. And then, of course, everybody, J.J. McCarthy, we don't think he can throw the football and make big plays. Okay. Well, and here's the thing, too. And the reason I know that Ohio State's defensive coaches approached it that way, Kenny, is because of how Jim Knowles played it. Kenny, I couldn't believe they were in cover zero the whole, which means cover zero, no safety help over the top, right? You got your safeties up near the linebackers around the line of scrimmage. And Michigan hit three big touchdown throws against that defense with no safeties. I thought Jim Knowles was brought here for this one game, Kenny. Was he not? They fired half their defensive staff a year ago, didn't they?
Yes.
After the bludgeoning in Ann Arbor, didn't they? And they brought him in. What changed? I'm going to tell you, yesterday was worse than last year in Ann Arbor, in my opinion.
You and I are in agreement right there. And Ryan Day was awful yesterday. Excuse me, a couple of days ago. We're taping this on yesterday. It's Sunday night.
Okay,
so Ryan Day,
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah. So Ryan Day brought back to me, I look at that, the talent level, the 5-star recruits, more talent on paper, right, than Michigan has. You're at home. The crowd is there and everything. The ghost, well, he's still with us. I shouldn't say it. I had visions of John Cooper on the sidelines yesterday with some of the decisions that Ryan Day was making in that game. The inability to check your ego in the locker room at halftime and make adjustments in the second half as they got outscored 28-3. My goodness, Ryan Day, Jim Knowles both had horrendous second halves, and I thought Ryan Day was terrible the entire game, Michael. His game plan, his inability to say, all right, they're taking away the deep ball. Let's go for the shorter underneath stuff, sustained drives, and we'll still get touchdowns that way instead of having to hit the home run and get my guy the Heisman Trophy. Well, guess what? By doing what they did yesterday, the game plan they used yesterday, not only did they lose the game to Michigan, they lost the chance to play in the Big Ten championship, and C.J. Stroud lost the Heisman Trophy. Hat trick for Ryan Day yesterday.
Yeah, all of that. And now the big question is, they were looking for some help from Notre Dame last night. It's going to be very interesting come Tuesday night. The big question is, as the best they'll be would be 4, which means, you're probably going to have to, but we'll worry about that. The thing is, I said last week, and I stand by it. I know I'm biased for the Big Ten, and I'll admit that again, always have been. I grew up in the Big Ten. It's all I knew as a kid. And so, yes, I have bias. Anytime you got, Michigan, Ohio State especially, I'm going to be ringing the bell for the two of them. So, Kenny, I believe they are 2 of the top 4 teams in the country. Even with my bias there, I still, as I look at it, now Ohio State didn't play like that yesterday, of course, but I'm willing to say that's a one-off. I hope Ohio State can get in the playoff, Kenny, in that 4 spot. It's going to be tough, though. It's going to be very difficult to do. Because, you're going to have to – Georgia and Michigan are in. And I'm almost ready to say TCU is in. Unless they completely go bad and have a terrible, terrible Big 12 championship game. So, Kenny, I think there's only 1 spot left, and that's for probably right now, I'd say USC. USC probably there. Ohio State's either 5 or 6, more than likely, when that comes out on Tuesday. So, obviously
that's the poll that matters, right? Tuesday night. We saw the polls come out today. AP and coaches had the Buckeyes 5th. Right. Okay. And we'll see if the College Football Playoff Committee agrees on Tuesday night that they're 5th. Alabama is 6th because the Buckeyes have 1 loss. Alabama's got 2. Forget Clemson, they lost. Forget LSU, they lost. Forget Oregon, they lost, right? So so here's what you have. Pac-12, Big 12. Pac-12, it is USC versus Utah, a rematch. And the Utes did beat USC earlier this year, 43-42, but that was in Utah. Right. And then in the Big 12, you've got TCU undefeated going up against Kansas State, who, they played earlier this year, and TCU won by 10 points at home. So is there a chance that one of those 2 could lose? Yes.
Sure. Yeah,
Michael,
of course.
I'm with you. USC loses, Buckeyes are in because USC will have not won the Pac-12 and will have 2 losses, okay?
Right.
But if USC wins, they're in, and TCU with a loss, then the debate goes, all right, 1 loss TCU or 1 loss Ohio State, and that's where who's the commissioner for the I always want to say it's Jim Delaney, but Kevin Warren. He was politicking for the Buckeyes yesterday already.
As you should.
So but it comes down, the Buckeyes now, they have nobody to blame but themselves.
That's right.
They put themselves in this position because Michigan's going to destroy Purdue in the Big Ten championship game, as would have the Buckeyes. So now they need help. They've got to watch those 2 championship games and hope that one of those 2 lose. And the committee thinks they're better than a 1-loss TCU team potentially, or a 2-loss USC team potentially, and a 2-loss Alabama team.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it comes down to. And, I think if and it doesn't even have to be convincing, because I think there's a great deal of respect for, Utah, and they're a very good football program. They've shown that over the course of the last many years. Kenny, if USC does find a way to win, if it's by a point, they're going to get that 4 spot. Because
they've got the Heisman Trophy winner, too, now, and their quarterback,
Caleb
Williams, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And again, Kenny, there's one thing that the committee puts a great weight on conference champions.
Yep.
And so if USC wins that, I think for the second straight year, the Ohio State Buckeyes, after losses and decisive losses, dominated losses to Michigan, will sit home. So you got to be really rooting for Utah to take down USC. I think that's what it comes down to, because that's really the only legitimate shot Ohio State has.
Yeah, I can't see Kansas State upsetting TCU. And if it were me, I'll take a one-loss Buckeye team over a one-loss TCU. But you know what? We'll have to wait and see if that happens. But, Michael, you mentioned the long scoring plays via the air because of the defense Ohio State was playing. How about the 2 runs they get? Michael, I just totaled it up. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Donovan Edwards finishes with a career high, 216, 2 scores. Michigan carved up Ohio State's defense on 5 plays. 5 plays totaled 349 yards and 5 touchdowns in that game. 69 yards, 75 yards, 45 yards, 75 yards, and 85 yards. Those 5. And here's, please, Buckeye fans, I don't want to hear this shit, okay? Because I remember when Butch Davis said it. When who was it? It was Jamal Lewis who ran all over them. Remember?
That's right.
If you take out
away
those
a couple,
3,
that's right.
Take away those 3 runs, we held them to 150 yards. Well, you can't, because they're a part of the game. So don't give me, well, they only had 5. Yeah, their 5 plays scored 35 points. The Buckeyes scored 23 as a whole, and the Buckeyes settled for field goals while Michigan scored touchdowns for the second consecutive year.
Yeah.
And Michael, C.J. Stroud, hey, I look at him, and rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, same thing. I'm sorry, I don't see that working at the NFL level. I just don't see a franchise-changing, top-flight quarterback at the NFL level, and I know he's not going to do it. He needs another year of college football experience reading defenses, because he was confused last week against Maryland, and they barely pulled that one out, and was confused again this week against Michigan for the second straight year, as he was picked twice with his 2 touchdown passes that he did throw. So he needs another year of seasoning for me. But, hey, it might be better, because the Buckeyes, I think, need to move on from him. You need a quarterback who isn't, A, afraid to run, and B, can run the football to keep plays alive and to get you yards on the ground when there is nothing there. And Caleb Williams showed that yesterday in the win for USC over Notre Dame, and I think secured the Heisman Trophy over C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, more than likely. And listen, I get it. Although I got to tell you, as I saw it, I don't know if you heard C.J. Stroud meeting with the media yesterday, Kenny, after the game. I get it. Listen, you just lost a tough one. He got a little bit defensive, though. He said, and I'm going to try to give you this. He said, hey, I get it. I know I'm going to go down as the guy forever that's 0-2 and never beat Michigan. Yep. I get that. And, but he was kind of, like I said, he was he showed a lot of, being upset about that. Well, again, like you just said, last year, I tell you, in Ann Arbor, he threw for like 325 yards now in the loss, right?
Yeah.
I thought he played very, very well last year. He outplayed the Michigan quarterback, Cade McNamara, in last year's game, but he certainly didn't outplay J.J. McCarthy yesterday.
No.
And so, look, it comes with the territory. I was saying this to my son, Cal, today. I know. Again, you say you feel bad. Look, this is what you signed up for, young man. You want to go play quarterback at Ohio State?
Yep.
Look, man, you got enough God-given talent to do that. I'm all about you. That's phenomenal. But here's the thing, man. When things go poorly and go bad, yeah, you got to stand there and take it and answer questions. Yeah, you do. It's what you signed up for. If that's the case, with all due respect, again, because you don't man, then, go to Northwestern.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I won't go any further, but you know what I mean by that. All due respect, because I really like Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern. Good man. Good. But you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Man, listen, if you're going to get defensive when people ask you, hey, you're 0-2 now against Michigan in the two biggest games you're going to play, and you're probably never going to be able to get that back. And again, I get it. It's tough when you're an athlete, but man, you signed up for that. You got to understand that's going to happen. And yeah, you go 0-2 against Michigan as a starting quarterback. Well, look, ask Kirk Herbstreit about that. He never beat Michigan.
Exactly. Yep.
Never beat Michigan. And everybody, and then on the other hand, and I know I've said this to you before, and on the other hand, I know Buckeye fans hate Desmond Howard and what happened. But you know what Desmond Howard says? Laugh when you fought. Yeah, well, I'm 4-0 against Ohio State.
Right. And you got Buckeye players in the last 20 years who went 4-0, and they say, I was 4-0 against Michigan.
As they should.
Absolutely. In this rivalry, that's
be
part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. You should pump the more power to you. All the Ohio State players, absolutely. I'd be throwing them gold pants out there, as much as I could and rubbing it in every chance I could. That's what this rivalry is. And so, again, Ohio State fans, same thing. You want to hate Desmond Howard? You go ahead. You think he cares? He says 4-0. That's what he says.
Charles Woodson, 3-0 in a Heisman Trophy.
3-0 in a Heisman Trophy. You think Charles Woodson cares? Now you're going to tell, well, you're an Ohio guy.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Oh, he'll say that 3-0 in Heisman Trophy.
That's it. That's all that matters. And I had people text me, oh, can you believe they planted the flag like Baker Mayfield? And my response to that is this, Michael. You don't want them planting the flag on your home turf? Don't let them beat you on your home turf. Then you don't have to worry about whether they plant a flag or do a dance or whatever the hell it is in the block O. That's on you. And Jim, I heard Jim Harbaugh, and you know what, as a Buckeye fan, and everybody knows that for me, I can't stand Harbaugh because he's the coach at Michigan, and he rubs people the wrong way, except for the people in that locker room and that are Michigan fans. But he said,
go ahead.
He said, hey, I want to go get that flag and put it in the Hall of Fame or something like that, here at Michigan. Yeah, he gets it. He understands it. Born on third base at Ohio State, Ryan Day. Well, maybe he's got something there.
Yeah,
with Ryan
Urban
Day.
Meyer never lost to Michigan.
7-0, and now Day's 1-2. Right?
Never lost to Michigan. And Kenny, I will say this: it's flipped, man. It's flipped back again. I'm telling you, it's flipped.
Took a while, but it has in a big way.
Yeah, but it's flipped back, and now Michigan's the top team in the Big Ten right now. It's flipped.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm as much a historian about this rivalry. From what do we know since Michigan's win in 99 and 2000 when they won back-to-back, Ohio State 17-4. So that's a big-time flip. Huge flip. Is that not what happened? Now, the Cooper years, though, Michigan won 10-12, right?
Yeah, and a tie in there. Yep.
And so that was Michigan dominance. And now Ohio State's been dominant for over 15 years. I think it's flipped, Kenny. I really do. Especially, we'll see if these coaches stay here. If Jim Harbaugh stays at Michigan, again, Ohio State. You know what Jim Harbaugh is and how he is going to play you. So to me, that you know what he's going to do. Don't tell me there's any surprises at all with how Harbaugh wants to play and win that game. And as I always say, it was funny when he started out 0-5 because, Jim Harbaugh went 3-1 as a quarterback in Michigan against Ohio State. But he starts out his coaching career and losing.
0-5.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know what he was going to do. You know Harbaugh wants to have one of the most dominant offensive lines in the game, old school, and run the football on you. You know that. So, again.
And that goes against today's trends.
It does.
Right?
You can't stop that, though?
In college
you can't
football,
stop that. You know what that, to me, that's even a little bit more of a shot at coaching on the Ohio State side.
This is Ryan. And somebody said to me, Roadman, maybe they get in and get another shot at Michigan. And my answer was, what makes you believe they in a shorter period, they had a whole year to figure it out and they failed to do so? What makes you think Ryan Day can figure it out in a matter of a month if they were to somehow, some way play Michigan again this year in the playoff? And Ryan Day's got to go back and look at himself. And that's the thing yesterday, Reg. And I give Harbaugh and all their players credit, talking about questioning their toughness all last year. Desmond Howard again doing it this year, right? They got inside the heads of the Ohio State Buckeyes coaches and players, because what did Harbaugh tell Ryan Day tell Tom Rinaldi yesterday at halftime? They were up 20-17. They should have been up like 28-17, and it was just a 3-point lead. Oh, I like our toughness and our physicality in the first. And I'm thinking, wait a second. You should be up by double digits, if not 2 touchdowns, and you're talking about physicality and toughness that you match them? No, that's not what you should be focused on. You should be focused on your terrible play calling, your breakdowns defensively, and the fact that you only lead by 3 and gave them hope and confidence, and it sure came back to bite you in the ass in the second half when you were outscored 28-3.
Kenny, I know both of those rosters. I call college football for a living. I have access. I know both of those rosters impeccably. You're asking me who's the more talented roster? It's Ohio State.
Right.
It's Ohio State. They're the more talented roster. And yet, let's see, in the last two games now,
87
Michigan
to 50,
has put up 87 points.
Yep.
And run for over 600 yards.
Yep.
So Ohio State's a more talented football team. Michigan unequivocally is the tougher football team.
Oh, it's not even close. Even close. So, Buckeyes don't have that nastiness, that physical. Yeah, JT Tuimoloau going to be a good player. He had one big game so far this year. Jack Sawyer, didn't hear a damn thing from him yesterday. Eichenberg, I know, playing with Tommy two thumbs, 2 broken thumbs. But hey, Donovan Edwards had a cast on his right hand. He played with a broken hand or thumb as well. So, but the Buckeyes defensively and their secondary, just awful yesterday. So, hey, nobody to blame but themselves if they don't make the playoffs. More scars that will have to heal and maybe motivate them for next year. And, you got to go back to, as I call it, Reg, the outhouse in Ann Arbor next year, right? And you're going to do so with a first-time starting quarterback at the collegiate level, more than likely, if Stroud jumps to the NFL. And you're going to have to go into Ann Arbor on a 2-game losing streak. That quarterback next year, right? I won't pick the Buckeyes until they beat them again. I'm telling you right now, unless Michigan go banged up next year, I'm telling you right now, Michigan's the favorite next year with McCarthy coming back, the game at home and the momentum that they have in this series.
Yeah, right now I don't know how you could say otherwise and even convince yourself if that's the way you feel. But again, they better find a way. Ohio State better find a way. I know that, love getting all those 5 stars and those high 4 stars, and that's fantastic. But, Kenny, right now, I think there's more of an emphasis on, the flash and the flavor and the dash at Ohio State. And again, they are a tremendous football team. But when you got an opponent now and your most heated rival who is unequivocally, unquestionably tougher than you are mentally and on the football field.
Yep.
What are you going to do about that? Is all your flash and dash going to be able to overcome that? And again, didn't they? Well, we understand now. Wasn't that for the last 365 days, Ken? That's what I heard. We understand now. Exactly. Yeah. We got to. Again, to me, in a certain degree, yesterday was worse than the domination last year in Ann Arbor for Ohio State.
100%, Red. So kudos to the Wolverines. They'll take down Purdue. They'll be one of the 4 teams in the playoffs. We'll see who joins them in Georgia in the playoffs come a week from this Tuesday it'll be that Sunday, right? They do it Tuesday night, and then they'll announce everything the following Sunday, the 4 teams that make the college football playoff. Hey, Reg, before we get out of here on this, the news broke later tonight, right? Big Ten news that Luke Fickell, former Buckeye player, interim coach, went 6-7 with the Buckeyes the year after Tressel was let go. Takes over Cincinnati, 6 years, first non-Power 5 conference team, right, to play in the college football playoff. Even though they lost, he took them there. Well, he used that part of his resume to get the attention of Wisconsin, and the Badgers, after firing Paul Chryst, have announced that Luke Fickell is their new head football coach. Just your thoughts on that real quick.
I have a tremendous amount of admiration and respect for Luke Fickell. I've called a couple of Cincinnati games since he's been the head football coach there. So conversations with him, about just his coaching career. And of course, as he during the week that we call the game, you talk to the head coach and the coordinators, and they let you in on their program and their players. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, Kenny. Listen to me. The big thing is there. I mean, we know Wisconsin's had some success, Ken, but I think you know this. I mean, unless Fickell can flip it all, and I don't know if it's possible, you can't recruit to Wisconsin like you do to Ohio State and Michigan. So he's going to have to overcome that a little bit. And maybe he can. I do think, Kenny, that in a couple of years, he can do enough to be the best team in the West. I'll say, nobody's going to do it but you know what I mean. I think he'll find his way to get the Badgers to the Big Ten championship game as the team in the West. And then he'll, I know Luke Fickell because I used to talk to him about it, Ken. He is a devout Ohio State Buckeye, man, as he should be. So I can't wait for the first time that Luke Fickell and Wisconsin play Ohio State. I didn't look. I don't know if they're on the schedule against one another in 23, but
I'll have to check that.
Won't be more than a couple of years because to me, he's one of the guys, when I think of, the Ohio State tradition and the reverence that former players have for the program, Kenny, I put him right up at the top of it. He is, was just an Ohio State football player through and through. And I believe he did some time early on as an Ohio State assistant coach. Did he not? I think he did.
Well, Reg, he was an assistant defensive coordinator when they won the title with Urban Meyer in 2014. He stayed on after he was the interim coach. And, put it on your calendar, Michael Reghi, October 28th of next year, Buckeyes travel to Madison, Wisconsin to take on Luke Fickell and the Wisconsin Badgers. So I'm sure he's already got that one circled for him. And kudos to him. As a coach, this is what you have to do. You've seen it, Michael, for calling basketball games and football games in the MAC for how many years, right? That's the springboard. Go to a MAC school, do well, make your name in the NCAA tournament in basketball, win the MAC in football, and hope that springboards you to somewhere else as a head coach. And so Luke Fickell didn't go the MAC route. He went to Cincinnati, and now he's headed, pretty
American,
close.
Group of 5, not a Power 5, Group of 5.
Similar. Yeah.
And he was terrific. Boy, did he have a tremendous run with the Bearcats, huh?
Yes.
Outstanding.
Yep. So congratulations to Luke, great guy, and that'll add some intrigue to that matchup. And don't forget this too now, Michael, I'm with you. He has a chance to maybe take over the West because the West pales in comparison to Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State in the East. But don't forget, we've got to wait and see how USC and UCLA will be matched up.
That's right.
In the Big Ten in the coming years as well. So there's another change that we'll have to deal with down the road that'll be extremely interesting. Reg, great stuff as always. Browns get a win. Buckeyes get a loss. Michigan kicks their butt again. And, Cavaliers, they won tonight, too. They beat the Pistons by 12, I think. So they're 13-7 in their first 20 games. So keep that up. An exciting season, and we'll get more into Cavaliers basketball throughout the year as well here on the R&R podcast. Reg, hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Good stuff tonight as always. We'll do this again next week after Deshaun Watson makes his Cleveland Browns debut.
Yeah, it's going to be quite the week here with Watson coming in to take over the quarterback range. Yeah, Kenny, hope you and the family had a terrific Thanksgiving as well, and I look forward to doing this with you next week after Watson's debut against his former team, the Houston Texans.
Oh, I see. Only in Cleveland can it happen that way. All right, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to the R&R podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network, powered by MGM Northfield Park. Shout out to our producer, Ty Courts, for making sure this is out there for you to listen to. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you next time on the R&R Pod.